Well, it is 1 o'clock, everyone, and welcome to the May 19th, 20th, May 20th meeting of the Board of the Edmonton Metro Transit Services Commission. It's a pleasure to see you all again today. And let me just start off by making some opening remarks and a reminder to all that we are now recording this meeting and it is being live streamed on YouTube for public consumption. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, board members are each in their own respective homes and places of work for the duration of this recording. I want to thank all those who have joined us today and to the members of the public who may be watching our live stream or later the recordings of this meeting. I'd like to start off our meeting, as we always do, with a land acknowledgement. On behalf of the board, we would like to acknowledge the traditional land which we are virtually gathered as Treaty 6. We would like to thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Nakudesau, and Blackfoot peoples. We also acknowledge this as the Métis homeland and the homeland of the largest concentration of Inuit south of the 60th parallel. This is a welcoming place for all peoples who come from around the world to share the Edmonton metropolitan region as home. I'd like to now call the meeting to order at 1:03. And we have an agenda before us, and you have all seen it. I would certainly entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Mayor Ralph, thank you very much that the May 20th, 21 agenda be adopted as presented. And we'll use the voting icon, the raise the hand motion. So I'll call the question, all in favor? And I see that is unanimously passed. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, on to the approval of the minutes that were attached to the agenda package that was distributed. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented. But let me do that. Let me ask if there's any errors or omissions that anybody has checked. Councillor Walter, do you have a comment?
No, that was a residual hand.
Okay, residual hand, fair enough. Hearing no errors or omissions comments, can I have someone move the acceptance of the regular board minutes of April the 22nd as presented? Thank you, Councillor Laurie. I'll call the question. All in favor? And again, that's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. It is now my pleasure to introduce to the online public, because we have all met our new Chief Executive Officer, but I'd like to introduce the Commission's first historic hire. And just in terms of some opening comments, the idea of a commission has been around the region for some time, and over the last 2 years we've actually done the work necessary to build a business case to establish a commission. Now, back at the end of January, the provincial government took a look at the work that the 8 municipalities had done and passed judgment and said, yes, you may in fact form a commission. In order to move forward with this, though, we have to have a staff and someone to lead the formation of the commission to the betterment of public transit within the Edmonton metropolitan region. And I am pleased to introduce Mr. Paul Jankowski. He is a successful candidate after a significant executive search. And I want to welcome you back to the Edmonton region because you're an Edmonton born and raised individual, and certainly welcome you back to this area. Before I turn the mic over to you, Paul, for some comments, certainly love to invite my Vice Chair, Councillor Michael Walters, to say some opening comments as well. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. So just to say welcome to Paul. Looking forward to hearing from you in a couple minutes about your cross-country travels through a pandemic to relocate in a new city. You can regale us with the story of your arrival. Hopefully it was smooth. Looking forward to the agenda today as we continue to build this great organization. So short and sweet, Wes. Thanks for a minute.
It's my pleasure, Councillor Walters. And the floor is now yours, Paul, for your commentary.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Walters. I just want to say how thrilled I am to be here. It's been a process the last number of months discussing the opportunity with you, and it is tremendous work that the board has overseen over the course of the last number of years, and has really positioned the commission at a great starting spot. Working with all of the municipalities in the Edmonton area, but particularly with the 8 municipalities represented on the board. I look forward to working with the board as a whole and with each one of you individually, as well as working with all of the councils, all of the administrations of the 8 municipalities to really stand up a bang-up integrated suite of transit services in the Edmonton metropolitan region. It's going to be a heck of a challenge, but I'm confident that with all the quality people that have been involved in the effort to this point, all the people that work in all of the various organizations around the region, and all the partners and stakeholders that are out there, that we will be able to stand up this organization over the next number of months and get us to a point where we truly deliver on integrated transit to benefit all of the travelers across the entire region. So with that, I'll turn it back to you and just say thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Jankowski. Appreciate those comments. Looking forward to the next number of months as well, as we build out the organization that will move us ever closer to operationalizing the vision that the 8 municipalities drew together around. So thank you very much. Moving on now to the items on the agenda for discussion today. Mr. Jankowski, you will normally be driving the ship here, but given that you're like hours into the job, I believe Josh is going to drive the ship today. Is that correct, Mr. Cole?
Correct, Mr. Chair. So happy to take over at this point. And I think a good recognition that this has become a bit of a standing item on the agenda, with kind of a stand up or startup update. And we expect that, and I've talked to the CEO about this, that this very likely will evolve into a kind of a standing item around a CEO update that board members would receive on a regular basis on agendas. And really want to thank Paul for his help and work in this early few days as we've kind of looked over all these materials and getting him up to speed on everything that's going on. So appreciate his feedback on all of this. And so just a few items that we'll update you on. The first being is that we have secured office space for the EMTSC. And so the space is in a shared workspace, and it will be relatively a short-term flexible lease, because we're conscious of cost, obviously, and want to make sure it's a cost-effective, flexible, scalable solution. And so that space has been secured and is available for at this point for Paul or other members, of course, abiding by all kind of public health regulations which we would expect. And so hopefully, as things open up, that office space will become a little busier. And that was the one that we briefed the board on before at the World Trade Center on the 6th floor on Jasper Ave. So good to get that in place. And hopefully, as I said, people will be meeting there live soon, but available for Paul's use, and then as he begins to hire people. So a good milestone there to have met. going to give an update on the finance function, which I may get Al to do, but why not, while I hold the mic here, I'll just give an update on the HR and comms, and then we can go to Al. HR function has been busy. One of the things you'll see that they've been working on, the team of our consultants here and specialists, the policies that have been reviewed and approved by the HR committee. So they're here at the board today. So we'll get into those a little later. As mentioned to the board, there is in the midst of a recruitment for an executive assistant for the CEO, and work continues to progress on looking at building out a workforce transition plans, job descriptions, and looking, of course, to make sure that we have the right content information about those descriptions, pay scales, things like that, and really looking at comparators around the region and at the member municipalities for that content and information. On the communication side, good progress being made. We have Berlin helping us, communications firm, local communications and branding firm, working with us on communication stakeholder and public outreach plans. And so that work is evolving and moving forward. They've also, as you can see, there is if you look at your agenda this month, you can see the corporate EMTSC brand that's in use already, and so that will start to migrate also to the website and letterhead, email signatures, things like that. And so really allows for all of you as board members and the CEO to be able to communicate in a professional way with other orders of government, stakeholders, et cetera. And so that's been put in place. And so they continue to work on a number of those important initiatives. And maybe I can hand it to Al to just give a bit of an update on progress on the finance side of things.
Sure, thanks, Josh. So similar to HR, the Finance Committee has met, and you'll in your package for decision and approval today, they've moved forward policies related to the finance function and let's say overall commission administration. In addition, banking continues to move forward, and things are in line to have all the accounts set up and established according to plan. We have the finance systems technology are in place now, so regular accounting functions are taking place, as well as the ability to provide the financial reporting. So everything is moving forward appropriately on the finance side and continues to tick along according to plan.
Great, thanks. And so I guess with that, we hand it back to you, Mr. Chair, and the board. If there are any questions on these items or anything just generally related to kind of our startup logistics, we'd be happy to answer those.
Fair enough. Thank you, Josh. Board, any questions from any members here for Josh or Al? Okay, seeing none, we'll just carry right on with the agenda, moving on to the policy section.
Yeah, I think just maybe before we move on to policy, we'll just motion to accept agenda item number 5 as for information.
Fair enough. Thank you, Councillor Harris, for making the motion that the board accepts this as information, material, and discussion as presented during the update on the EMTSC stand-up. Any questions? Any opening comments, Gordon?
No, I think a lot of hard work has been done, and have to thank all those that have been involved in getting us to this point, including board members, because this has been yeoman's work.
It has indeed. Anyone else want to weigh in on the topic? Seeing none, let me call the question. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving right along then to the policy section.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So we're going to go through policies that have been dealt with the Audit and Finance Committee, and then policies dealt with by the HR and Compensation Committee, and in that order. So I'll ask Al, Tom, just to start with a walk through some slides for the Audit and Finance Committee policies.
Okay, thanks. We can move to the next slide here. Okay, perfect. So we've got policies. We've got the policy development policy. So the first one, and you would have had all of these in your packages earlier. So I'll go through them briefly, and we can go through questions. So really, this helps to define how policies will move forward within the commission, the difference between bylaws, board policies, administrative policies, and policies and procedures, as well as which ones come to the board, which ones that are administrative in nature fit within the CEO's mandate, and then below that, how the actual procedures are implemented, written, implemented, and adopted. So it's fairly straightforward policy just to give guidance on where roles and responsibilities are and who has ultimate approval for decisions, and how policies go about being amended or revised or withdrawn. One of the key things, you'll see this across all 4 of these policies, is that there's a review period within 180 days to recognize that the commission continues to evolve, and that any one of these 4 policies you're going to see here now need to be revisited to make sure that their form and function is still appropriate. So that's the one on the policy development. I can take questions as we go, Mr. Chair, or I can go through all 4 of them, and we can pause at the end.
Okay, fair enough. Let me just ask the question of the group. If you have a question, why don't you just use the raise hand function? I'll acknowledge you, but if not, we'll take questions at the end. But, weigh in if you've got a question. So seeing none, just carry on, Al.
Okay, let's move to the next one we have is fraud, misconduct, and whistleblower policy. So again, while not specifically financial, it moved through the financial committee as a place for them to take a look at it first, and there certainly are financial aspects according to fraud. But this just gives an understanding for the commission and its employees and board members' responsibilities in terms of these areas and the importance really to make sure there's proper governance in place. And ultimately what the CEO will have to implement next is the procedures around how this gets managed for employees or others to bring forward instances of fraud, misconduct, and an ability to bring that forward under a whistleblower policy that protects them in their role and creates an environment that allows people to feel confident that they can bring forward issues without repercussion. So again, fairly standard policy fitting in line with what you would see most organizations adopt. It's got a review process within 180 days as well. We can move on to the next one, financial reporting. Again, with financial reporting, a review process within 180 days, recognizing that we're just getting into the financial reporting cycle now. I think what's important to recognize is there are items in the bylaws that dictate the timing of financial reporting and when certain activities are to be done. This ultimately helps define what we mean by financial reports, annual budgets, following accounting standards, etc. When things need to come back, when things need to come to the board, confirmation that you're doing a budget for each year, that you're doing rolling 3-year operating budgets, and you're doing rolling 10-year capital budgets, and that they go through the audit and finance committee first for recommendation up to the board, and then to board approval, and the responsibility of the CEO to prepare those budgets. Other than that, it's a fairly standard policy, just outlining the process and the requirements. Okay, and our final policy here is procurement and expenditure. So procurement and expenditure really starts to outline an important aspect now as the commission starts to develop, starts into operations and spending more significant dollars. What is the process for procurement and incurring expenses? And really this states that the commission is going to follow what most public sector organizations follow now in terms of trade agreements. It starts to outline whether you're going to procurement for goods and services or for construction and what thresholds those look like. Also defines when you're evaluating decisions on who to procure through, some of the key factors to consider, which is, price, it's warranties, it's delivery times, it's sustainability. There's a number of factors, but it defines some of those measures that should be considered through a procurement process. And maybe what's important to note is it provides the levels by which procurement runs. And I'll just highlight that anything up to $5,000 does not require any quotation. Anything from $5,000 to $40,000 requires written quotations from 2, preferably 3 suppliers. Anything from $40,000 to $75,000 requires an invitational procurement process. And then anything over 75,000 is an open procurement process. And I'll just, the difference between an invitational procurement process and is an open. So invitational is you can select suppliers or proponents that you would like to contact directly for those quotations up to $75,000 through a formal process, as opposed to quotation. Anything over 75 is open, typically posted, on APC or some other form for anybody as an open opportunity to provide a proposal for. So it's important to recognize that the commission really focuses on an open procurement process and transparency into how it's procuring its services and supplies. And 180-day review of this one as well. That's the end of the 4 that worked that related to finance that came up through the finance committee as endorsed.
All right, thanks, Hal.
Yeah, so we do have a motion
You're the
here.
chair of the Audit and Finance Committee. Any comments as this went through your committee?
Yeah, no, I just want to comment and appreciate the work of the administrative group that brought the policies forward. We had a great opportunity to have discussions around them, get some confirmations around everything that was included in them. And, obviously understanding that a lot of these policies are policies we felt were necessary to be in place at a very early point in the organization and as we stand up. So I'm glad to see we were able to get them through and in front of the board today.
Fair enough, thank you. Any other comments from anybody, questions? Councillor Finstad?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment that I think it was extremely important that we undertook these policies in advance of the arrival of our CEO, meaning he can focus on other tasks at hand and not have to worry about the structural or organizational component to this far. And I really think it gives him a little bit better footing than just walking into an empty desk, an empty room and saying, here you go, buddy, have at her. So I think we did a great job of bringing this forward in, as Councillor Laurie mentioned, in a very timely manner.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Councillor Finstad. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Laurie, can I look to you to make the motion then that's before us?
You certainly can, Chair. I will move that the board approve the Audit and Finance Committee endorsement critical policies as presented at the May 20th, 2021 board meeting.
Thank you. Accept that. Any opening comments?
No, other than I'll just reiterate what I had already mentioned about my appreciation to the working group for getting these in place. And as Glenn mentioned, the ability to have these in place so that our CEO can start focusing on a little bit more of the finer details that we want him to be focusing on as soon as his butt's in the seat. It's great to see these out of his way. Obviously, given the opportunity for the 180 days to have a glance at them, make sure that everything aligns to how he wants to run the organization, how he feels we need to be set up. But other than that, I hope this takes just another roadblock out of his way to help him move forward in standing the commission up.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Mayor Ralph.
I just wanted to echo what's already been said, but the Audit and Finance Committee had a good opportunity to review these, and we had some really good discussion in regards to them. And I'd like to, just a hats off to our legal advice expert there, who is some of this work has basically been groundbreaking. So hats off again to everybody that was involved in putting these together, and hopefully Paul, can at least not have to worry about this right now. But again, he's got the opportunity to 180 days in review if he wants to make any changes. But it's one less thing off his plate. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ralph. Anything further to close, Councillor Laurie?
Oh, nothing further, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'll call the question. All in favor, please. And that is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. On to the HR and compensation policies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And like the ones that audit and finance, these 4 policies have been kind of informed by and reviewed by the HR committee. So I want to thank them for that, and everyone else who participated in developing them. I think what's common with all 4 of these policies is that they certainly set a good foundation and send the message that the board an organization wants to as they begin to fill out their ranks. And so we start with the employee code of conduct. Just want to note that this in many ways is a complement to the board code of conduct that has been passed previously and certainly aligns with that, but this speaks to the employees who will be part of the organization. Certainly sets out to describe what conduct is expected of them. I think the name of the policy says a lot, but what really we want to do with this is 2 things. One is be clear and have no ambiguity around what kind of conduct is acceptable and expected. And so as people enter the organization and sign on to this, quite literally, they will be clear and there'll be clarity around that. And secondly, it attempts to provide some guidance for people if they do have questions or their situations are unsure of, or in an unfortunate situation come across behavior or conduct that they don't know that is compliant. It gives them guidance on how to approach that. And so the code of conduct, again, is kind of one of those foundational pieces that we're pleased to have in place before the organization starts to be built out and filled with more employees. The second one that very much is a companion piece to the code of conduct is one that specifically highlights the need for a respectful and inclusive and safe workplace. And so the respect in the workplace policy sets out to do this. Again, it certainly details what is not acceptable behavior in a workplace, and sets out the expectations of employees and ensures that it's a workplace that's welcoming to any of our future employees as they enter. So that is respect in the workplace. The third one focuses more on is a conflict of interest policy. And so again, like anyone in, especially in the public service or in a public position like the future employees of the EMTSC will be, we wanted to provide a policy that outlines situations that employees should avoid. But again, like the other policies, gives guidance if a conflict does arise, or if there is a question about whether they're in a situation of conflict, of what to do. And again, certainly wanting to highlight for all employees, and certainly right off the bat, that want to avoid conflict, but just as importantly want to avoid the perception of conflict, which can be in many cases just as damaging to the employee, but also to the organization. And so another critical one, and I just say for all these policies, I think obviously every organization would have these. I think it's fortunate that these will be in place from day one, and so they set a standard for employees as they begin to join the organization. And then the fourth and final one is a diversity and inclusion policy, and one that certainly outlines the Commission's commitment to creating a diverse and inclusive work environment, but I think also reinforces the values and mission of the board and of setting up the organization in a way that kind of lives up to the similar values that are expected and lived across the region. And so this again endeavors to make sure that that is the case inside of the Commission, and anyone who aspires to work there, who does work there. And I think it's also important to note that increasingly, in order to attract talent, retain talent, these are the types of policies that you need in place to make sure that you're able to get the people you need and want in these positions leading the organization. And so I think the diversity and inclusion one certainly endeavors to do that. And all the other 3 ones give a similar level of clarity and comfort around ensuring that it's the EMTSC is a place for everyone to work and will attract the best talent. So happy to answer any questions on any of those policies. And again, thanks to the HR committee for having reviewed these and opined on them. Sorry, one last thought I'll just give that came up at committee, which we're already beginning to work on, is that these will actually be signed. We expect these will be signed annually by members of the commission. The part that requires some work is recognizing that as the organization grows, there'll be many ways in which people will work, whether they'll be, kind of on the front lines or in an office. And so one of the things we're looking to is just to find a system and a way in which it can be as easy as possible to get people to kind of re-up their commitment in these areas.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Councillor Muckhoff-Swain.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just gonna I guess, reinforce, but Josh, you spoke a bit about the fact that we had the good discussion in the HR committee about making sure that these weren't just policies that we spend a bit of time on now and then go and collect some dust and then we can point to them and say, see, look how great we are. We want to make sure that folks take the time, go through them, and as you mentioned, on an annual basis, kind of recommit to them. I don't think our organization is at a period where we can have that electronic online learning system at this stage. But I know there are lots of options out there. So looking forward to seeing that the recommendations that come back to make sure that these are meaningful, particularly the policy that's up in front of us here. They're all important, but just making sure that that folks actually go through and take the time and don't just scan to the bottom and sign and move on. So we want to make sure that that everyone who works for us really buys into these policies. So thanks for making that addition there, Josh.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harris, you're the chair of the HR committee. Any comments?
No, I think it's like the Finance and Audit Committee. These are foundational policies that we needed to get pinned down as the organization moves forward, and we want to make sure that we have those policies laid down so that we can start operations on a solid footing. So from a foundational piece, these will be the key ones going forward. We respect that there will be other policies that will evolve over time, and ultimately we'll be looking to the CEO for his input and guidance as we move through those more perhaps hands-on policies as we go. But these foundational ones, I think the committee had good discussions, and the comment that Josh made was one of the ones that came out of that in relation to ensure, and that the vice chair made an earlier comment on, to ensure that they're iterative in a certain context, but they will be foundational nonetheless.
Thank you very much for that. Given that I sit on the committee, I just want to echo the strength of the conversation we had around these policies, and to Councillor Muckhoff-Swain's point, I don't know that we could more strongly endorse these policies on a go-forward basis. So thank you to both of you for your comments today. Anything further from any committee member or board member? Okay, seeing none, can I turn to you, Councillor Harris, to make the motion?
I would defer to the vice chair, who was very passionate about these and opened up our comments. So I would defer to him to put the motion on the floor.
Fair enough. Councillor Muckhoff-Swain.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Yes, I'll move the motion that the board approve the HR and Compensation Committee endorsed critical policies as presented at the May 20th, 2021 board meeting.
Thank you very much. Accept that. Any opening comments?
No additional comments for me. It's all been said, and fully support these. Thank you.
All right. Any other want to weigh in on debate? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the hard work going through the policies. It sometimes seems a bit prosaic to do this sort of thing, but it's critically necessary to have these in place. And And the comments made earlier about this foundational work being in place as Mr. Jankowski takes on his role as CEO. These are in place now for him, and so he doesn't have to start building it on his own. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment before we move? I think anybody that watches these proceedings will see that we've passed things unanimously in almost every situation. And that does not mean that we haven't had some back and forth in terms of discussion on the policies or any of the other matters that have been before the board. It does, in my opinion, suggest that the board has been working with our support personnel to get to a point where we're intimately and comfortable with the information that we're tasked to approve. So while it has been unanimous approval, I think that's indicative of the fine work that's been done by both committee, board, and administrative support to this point. So I wanted to underscore that point so that people understand that.
thank you very much, Councillor Harris. Great comment. So we're on to the part of the agenda where we move in camera, and certainly entertain a motion to that effect. Councillor Finstad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the board move in camera in accordance with provisions of Division 2 exceptions to disclosure of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, or FOIP, RSA 2000, CF 25 as per section 16 through 28.
Thank you very much. Accept that motion. Call the question. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll wait to hear from you, Haley, to make sure that we have everybody in camera that needs to be here, and nobody else.
Can we have a 5-minute comfort break, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we can. Why don't we?
What?
I don't want Gord to wet himself, but I have a 3:15 stop. So,
well, too bad.
Too bad.
Just kidding.
No. But we can
okay.
take. I think we can do a couple minute break. Because the motion should only take 2 or 3 minutes. So,
real quick, Gord.
go, Gord, go. I don't want you to be grimacing there. We got 2 minutes.
I thought I was smiling.
Okay, let's take a 2-minute break.
Okay, 2.
All right, back at 10 past.
You know, Wes, Kara told me today, I picked up a shift.
And Michael, just so you know, we are on. I know whatever you can say is going to be fine, but just so you know, we are online.
No, I know. Anyway, she picked up a shift and then informed me of plumbers and deliveries to the house. So I've been having to duck out when the doorbell was ringing. In case you wonder where I was.
That's the nature of working at home, right?
Right, you're home, so you can do all these other things.
Yeah, that's all good. So Mayor Ralph, I'll look for you then to move the agenda item to add it.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Got it here.
Okay.
I'm back.
All righty.
Thank you for your indulgence.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. So we've got everyone back and we are reconvened in public. And Mayor Ralph, we have a motion before us. If you would care to make this motion.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, that the board add item 7A, bylaw respecting the process for disestablishment of the commission, including the treatment of assets and liabilities on disestablishment, to the May 20th, 2021 board meeting agenda on the basis of an urgency to satisfy anticipated finance requirements.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Shores, were you going to make a brief commentary around this? Is that how this plays now?
Mr. Chair, I think the commentary I'll make is in relation to the actual bylaw, the proposed bylaw. This, under the terms of the procedure bylaw, you by ordinary resolution can adopt a motion to add something to the agenda that wasn't in the agenda before. So.
Fair enough. Thank you then. Mayor Ralph, any comments to open?
No, just I would support this motion.
Okay, fair enough. Any other comments by any member of the board? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Councillor Walters. Maybe, so do we want to make the motion first and then have you speak, Bill? Or do you want to speak first and then make the motion?
I think you can make the motion and I can address it if invited.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I'll move that the board adopt the bylaw respecting the process of disestablishment of the commission, including the treatment of assets and liabilities on disestablishment as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Walters. Accept that motion. Before we get into debate then, Mr. Shores, if you would comment.
Thank you. And I understand administration was going to pop the substance of the bylaw up. Thank you. Just by way of background, this is a required bylaw under the Municipal Government Act. It's something that the commission needs for the purposes of bank financing to satisfy the bank debt on dissolution of the commission, which is a drastic step and not anticipated, but nonetheless, you have to have this in place. On dissolution, liabilities would be paid first. So it essentially does three things. It says the process you have to go through to disestablish the commission, which means to blow it up in essence. And then it sets out that liabilities must be paid first. And thirdly, it sets out that any residual assets are distributed on the basis of the weighted cost allocation, which is essentially the contributions over time of the members to the commission. The first page that you're looking at now sets out the process for disestablishment of the commission. In order to commence it, there needs to be a notice of motion brought by 3 directors. The number 3 was chosen so that it's not a majority to get it on the table, but it's not an inconsequential step. So a significant number of directors need to move to do this. Notice has to be provided to each member, to the chief executive officer, each member, that means each municipality, and the minister. There are specifications about what needs to be in the motion. No later than 30 days before the motion is to be considered, it has to be posted on the website of the commission. That will then enable both members and members of the public to make written submissions. Before the board votes on the motion, it has to consider those submissions. In addition, the board can also divert the matter into an arbitration. In addition, the board can invite public hearings in relation to the matter. So that's item number 9. And then the board, in order to actually dissolve the commission, the board has to pass it by way of a special resolution, which is a double 2/3 majority. Next page, please. First obligation on dissolution is to meet all liabilities of the commission, and sections 11, 12, and 13 provide the chief executive officer with the tools to essentially liquidate the assets of the commission and meet the liabilities. Next page, please. If there are remaining assets, those assets would be distributed, this is item number 14, amongst the members based, as I indicated early on the weighted cost allocation. And there are provisions in, I'm not going to take you through them now, sections 15 through 18, which essentially allow members to make a claim against specific assets or to bid on specific assets, the value of which would be offset against their share of the residual assets. In essence, what that means is members could either claim back or buy back a rolling stock, i.e. buses or real estate, etc. And it allows the board to set up the mechanism to do that by ordinary resolution. The process designed in this bylaw is intended to be challenging. And the reason it's intended to be challenging is the steps to dissolution need to be very, very carefully reflected on. That's why there are long periods of time, 90 days before this is heard, so that perhaps cooler heads would prevail in the event of a conflict among members.
Can I just make a point of order, Mr. Chair? I'm sorry to be difficult. We're 15 minutes past the end of the meeting. I had a 3:15 that I cannot miss. I cannot miss this vote because it's a special resolution. So, and I know I apologize, Bill, for interrupting you, but I just have real limits.
I will stop there, Mr. Chair, unless there are any questions.
Thank you. And seeing none, Councillor Walters, if you'd care to make the motion, and then we'll move on.
I'd already made it, Mr. Chair.
All right, fair enough. Any opening comments?
Nope, I think we had a significant explanation.
Fair enough. I'll call the question then. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone, on that. Recognizing it's by and large a legislative requirement, but it is in fact a procedural document that we just need to have in place. And Councillor Walters has now left the meeting, and appreciate his indulgence, as I do for the rest of the board. And oh, you're still home, Michael, but thanks. Moving right along, we have one more motion in relation to this. Councillor McKenzie, if I could ask you to make this motion. This is a just a normal motion, not requiring the special motion requirements. So over to you, Councillor McKenzie.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Broadhead. I'll make the motion that the Chief Executive Officer be directed to bring the bylaw respecting the process for disestablishment of the Commission, including the treatment of assets and liabilities on disestablishment, back to the board for review no later than March 31st, 2022, to assess its currency and to consider whether amendment is required.
Thank you very much. I accept that. Any opening comments?
No, other than I completely support this, and I do think that it is a good process to have this reviewed.
Fair enough. Any other comments by board members? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. In this case, it's 7-0 for the minutes. And we have another motion as we are now coming out of in camera. Can I have somebody make this motion? Thank you, Councillor Finstad.
You bet. I move the board accept the material and discussion as presented in camera as information.
Thank you very much. Any opening comments?
No, it's been a great meeting, and a lot was accomplished, actually.
Indeed it was. Thank you for that. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. All right. And that, I believe, is our meeting for today. Thank you for your indulgence, everybody on this call. It was actually a big meeting, and appreciate all the input by everybody. Josh, Al, Paul, any closing comments before I call it for an adjournment?
No, Mr. Chair, a lot accomplished.
Yeah.
Sure. Good meeting.
All right. Mr. Shores, again, thank you for you and your firm for some significant work. And I suspect that'll get the basis for many other bylaws within the province. All right. I will call the meeting adjourned then at 3:20. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
And
Bye.
you too.
Thanks all. Enjoy.